Right now, in Parliament and around kitchen tables across Canada, we're still wrestling with the same question. How do you hold a nation together when its parts can't agree on who they are? It's a debate that feels painfully current, and it all traces back to a single dramatic moment in 1990 when an Indigenous MLA named Elijah Harper raised his hand in the Manitoba legislature and simply said no. The room fell silent. Harper, holding an eagle feather, refused to give unanimous consent for a procedural vote. Without that consent, the Meech Lake Accord, a massive constitutional deal years in the making, couldn't move forward. It was a quiet, principled stand that echoed across the country, and it stopped a grand bargain in its tracks. To understand why that no mattered so much, you have to go back to 1982. That year, Canada patriated its constitution, bringing it home from Britain, and added a charter of rights and freedoms. But one province refused to sign: Quebec. For nearly a decade, that missing signature hung over the country like a question mark, a symbol of unfinished business. So in 1987, Prime Minister Brian Mulroney gathered the 10 provincial premiers at a lakeside retreat called Meech Lake, north of Ottawa. The mood was hopeful. They shook hands, smiled for the cameras, and announced a deal that would finally bring Quebec into the constitutional fold. It felt like a breakthrough, a moment of national unity. But the deal came with a deadline. All 10 provinces had to ratify it within 3 years, by June 23, 1990. One by one, provinces began to sign on. Check marks appeared on the map. By early 1990, 8 had approved. 2 remained: Manitoba and Newfoundland. The clock was ticking, and the suspense was building. At the heart of the accord was a simple but loaded phrase: distinct society. It acknowledged that Quebec, with its French language and unique culture, was not like the other provinces. To many Quebecers, this was just common sense, a recognition of who they were. But to others, it sounded like special status, a crack in the idea that all Canadians are equal. The accord also gave provinces more power over things that hit close to home: immigration and Supreme Court appointments. Quebec, for instance, would get to choose a minimum number of immigrants each year, and provinces would help pick judges. For supporters, these were practical, balanced changes. For opponents, they were concessions that weakened the federal government.
I was distributing pamphlets and putting the posters on the walls and placing the chairs in the city hall, for the meetings and so on.
The accord gave provinces more control over immigration. Quebec could negotiate its own targets. And when Ottawa launched shared cost programs, say in healthcare, provinces could opt out with compensation, using that money for their own priorities. For supporters, this was flexibility. For critics, it was a blank check to undermine national standards. But here's the catch. To become law, the accord needed unanimous approval from all 10 provincial legislatures within 3 years. That meant every single premier had to sign on, and every assembly had to vote yes. One holdout could kill the whole deal. It was an all-or-nothing gamble, and the clock was ticking. In June 1987, the mood was electric. Prime Minister Mulroney and the premiers emerged from Meech Lake with a deal. Newspapers ran headlines like "Meech Lake Accord signed, a new era for Canada." It felt like a breakthrough. Quebec was finally coming home. But beneath the optimism, fault lines were already forming. Then Pierre Trudeau, the former prime minister who had patriated the Constitution in 1982, stepped into the ring. In a blistering speech, he called the accord a botched deal that would weaken Canada by creating a distinct society with special powers. His words electrified opponents. Suddenly, the accord wasn't a unity fix, it was a threat. Indigenous leaders were furious too. They hadn't been included in the talks, and the accord made no mention of Aboriginal rights. Across the country, protests erupted. Signs read "Our rights first" and "No Meech Lake." For First Nations, the deal felt like a step backward, a deal that put Quebec ahead of everyone else. As the deadline loomed, 2 provinces became the final battlegrounds. On the map, Manitoba and Newfoundland were circled in red. In Newfoundland, Premier Clyde Wells, a fierce federalist, rescinded his province's approval. In Manitoba, the legislature faced a procedural hurdle. It needed unanimous consent to even hold a vote.
but he'll never feel comfortable there.
You go into politics because you have to, in a sense, use politics to achieve certain objectives.
And that's where Elijah Harper enters. An Ojibwe Cree MLA, he sat in the Manitoba legislature holding an eagle feather. When asked for unanimous consent to move the accord forward, he simply said no. Day after day, he refused. With that single word, the Meech Lake Accord died, a quiet act that changed the course of Canadian history. But while the standoff in Manitoba was unfolding, another domino had already tipped. In April 1990, Newfoundland Premier Clyde Wells, a fierce believer in equal provinces, not special status, pulled his province's support. He argued that calling Quebec distinct would create a two-tier Canada. And now, with the clock running out, he made it official. Newfoundland was out. The deadline was June 23, 1990, 3 years to the day from the original agreement. As midnight approached, the accord needed unanimous approval, but it had neither Manitoba's vote nor Newfoundland's. The calendar flipped from June 22nd to June 23rd, and with it, the Meech Lake Accord expired. No fanfare, no funeral, just silence. But in Quebec, the silence didn't last. The failure of Meech Lake felt like a rejection from English Canada. On the streets of Montreal, tens of thousands waved fleur-de-lis flags and chanted "Oui," a surge of separatist energy. The accord was supposed to bring Quebec into the constitutional family. Instead, it pushed the province closer to the exit door. Politicians scrambled to patch things up. In 1992, they tried again with the Charlottetown Accord, a broader deal that included Indigenous self-government and Senate reform. But this time, the whole country voted in a referendum, and they said no. The Charlottetown Accord was rejected by 54% of Canadians. Another grand bargain, another failure. Look at that split screen. On one side, the Quebec flag, symbol of a nation within a nation. On the other, the Indigenous flag, a circle of nations within Canada. And running between them, a crack. The Meech Lake Accord tried to bridge Quebec's grievances, but it ignored Indigenous voices. That crack has only widened as both communities push for recognition and self-determination.
It is much later that I started to discover, in a sense, what the Quebec public was, who they were, these people.
Fast forward to today. Here's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau signing an agreement with Indigenous leaders. In recent years, Canada has begun to address the legacy of colonialism, land acknowledgements, truth and reconciliation, self-government deals. But it's a slow, halting process. The Meech Lake fight taught us that constitutional change is never just about the words on paper. It's about who gets a seat at the table. And in Quebec, the debate continues. This is Bill 21, legislation that bans public servants from wearing religious symbols. It's a flashpoint between provincial autonomy and minority rights, a direct echo of the Distinct Society Clause. Quebec still insists on its own path, and the rest of Canada still wrestles with how to accommodate that. The Meech Lake Accord may be dead, but the questions it raised are very much alive. So today, when you hear debates about Quebec's place in Canada, or Indigenous nations asserting their sovereignty, or provinces demanding more control over immigration, those aren't new arguments. They're the same fault lines that cracked open in 1990, just shifted by time. The Meech Lake Accord didn't create these tensions. It just forced us to finally look at them, all at once, in the harsh light of a deadline. That brings us to you watching this. Canada's story is still being written. Every election, every Supreme Court case, every conversation around a kitchen table. The question isn't whether we'll ever agree on what this country should be. It's whether we can keep having the conversation. So we want to know, if you've been in Elijah Harper's shoes, or Clyde Wells's, or Brian Mulroney's, what would you have done? If this film got you thinking about how a nation holds together when its parts pull in different directions, hit subscribe. We make videos that dig into the knots of history, the moments that define a country, and help you untangle why they still matter. There's a whole library of stories waiting, and we'd love to have you along for the journey. Thanks for watching.